The next group of people we're going to talk about and look at the artifacts for are the mountain men. They were in Colorado from 1820 to 1850, so only about 30 years, but they left a huge impact on our culture. So first we'll look at the artifacts. We've got this guy right here, jingly bells, and a mysterious substance that smells not like a skunk and not like an elk, but similar, like a really musky smell, but not as gross as a skunk. So here are the clues. Mountain men traded all kinds of things with American Indian tribes. I was often traded because I am shiny and jingle. And we'll talk more about it in a minute. But the mountain men would go a couple times a year to a big event called a rendezvous, and that's where they would trade with Native Americans as well as the companies that bought the beaver pelts from them. My skin and fur were used to make top hats during the 1830s and 1840s. Mountain men came west to trap me in streams and rivers. And so the whole reason that the mountain men were in Colorado was because beaver hats were very popular in Europe, because they don't have beavers there. And so they would just travel. They had trails. They knew parts of Colorado really well, and so they would set traps for beavers in the river, and they would trap them. Then they would take off their skin, called the pelt, and just travel for months and trap beavers. And then they would go to the rendezvous, and they would sell the beaver pelts to the companies that would come over from Europe, and then they would turn those into hats. My strong smell comes from the beaver. Mountain men use me to attract beavers to their traps. And so that is the last artifact, which is a substance called castoreum. And the beaver has a scent gland in their neck that lets off a smell, just I think to attract other beavers. And like I said, it smells like similar to an elk or a skunk, but not as intense as a skunk. And when all this pandemic is over and you can visit me at the museum, ask and you can smell it. I always have a plastic bottle with just a cotton ball with a teeny tiny drop of castoreum. And it's not disgusting, but it's powerful. So come into the museum when all of this is over and ask to smell the castoreum. And you'll get extra credit if you can remember the name. So other facts about the mountain men: they were here for 30 years until beaver hats went out of fashion in Europe, which was good timing because at about that time they had killed the beavers almost to extinction. Did I say that already? Good. I think that's it. They once they kind of lost their jobs trapping beavers, a lot of them stayed and they became guides for settlers because they knew the mountains so well, and so they would help settlers find their way and advise them where to go and where not to go. The next group of people that we're going to talk about that had an influence on Colorado are the Cheyenne and Arapaho Native Americans. They came to this part of the state down here, the southeastern corner, in about 1800. They were forced out of their original home in the Great Lakes region of the United States by settlers there, and so they came to this part of Colorado, to the plains. And we have 3 artifacts here that will help us learn more about them. And Miss Charlie Rose is going to read us the clues.
The Cheyenne and Arapaho use me to hunt and protect themselves. My partner is the arrow. Chief Yellow Calf of the Arapaho even had a photo taken of me.
So we are talking about this. This is part of a bow and arrow, and here is the picture of Chief Yellow Calf holding a bow and arrow. And obviously the one that we have here is smaller than the one that's in his picture. The Cheyenne and the Arapaho hunted buffalo. And if you look at the size of those arrows and the size of the bow, I just think it's really, really amazing that they have these tiny tools to take down these giant animals. Okay, next clue.
The Cheyenne and Arapaho drank from me because I could carry a lot of water. I'm the body part of the bison, an animal which once roamed in the plains.
Which one is that, Charlie Rose?
This one. Personally, I think this is kind of disgusting.
Yep. So this was, did the clue say it? I forgot. This is the bladder of the buffalo. They literally used every part of the buffalo. They used the buffalo to make teepees, which is what they lived in. And they used just every part that they could. They were very grateful to the buffalo. And that's how they showed it. Okay, last one. Last clue.
I am made from the bones of large animals, and I am used as a tool to remove fur from animal skins.
So that's the bone scraper, and they would use, specifically they would take the thigh bone from the buffalo and then they would use it to scrape off the fat from the hide, and I actually have a picture of that too. And there you see a Cheyenne or an Arapaho woman scraping off the hide, and I think behind her you can even see the structure of a teepee. And of course that's they used the hides, they scraped them and treated them, and then they used the hides to make teepees and their clothes. Okay, a couple more facts about the Cheyenne and the Arapaho. Like I said, they came to Colorado in the 1800s. They were not in this part of Colorado very long before people started to settle in Colorado as well, and they forced the Cheyenne and the Arapaho further south to the Oklahoma area. Every year they have, the Cheyenne and the Arapaho have a powwow in Denver where they celebrate their culture, they dance, they show their art and their food, their storytelling, their music, and their heritage. And they also every year acknowledge the Sand Creek Massacre in 1864, which is what drove them out. The next group of people we are going to talk about are the miners. Now, to clarify, there were several mines in Colorado and they mined different natural resources. Specifically, these artifacts are talking about one natural resource, and that's gold and silver. So the miners definitely left their mark on Colorado. The gold miners particularly were here from about 1859, which is when they first discovered gold near Pikes Peak in Colorado, through 1893, where they kind of moved on. During that time, in mainly the western part of our state, there was gold and silver and all sorts of other natural resources discovered, and it brought in a lot of people and created a lot of towns that way. So we've got three artifacts here. We've got these shiny rocks, this pan, and this thing. And then my assistant Micah is going to demonstrate a couple things. So I was the reason thousands of miners came to Colorado. Miners hoped to get rich by selling me for money. Which one would that be, do you think, Micah? That was actually a tool for that, but that's actually this. Now this is not real gold. This is iron pyrite. I usually have a lot of students that ask me that. This is fake gold. It looks similar to gold. They call it fool's gold because miners would think that they found it in a stream, or usually in a stream, and they would take it to the assayer, the person that weighs it, and it wouldn't be gold. Next clue. Hold on, Micah, we'll get to that in a minute, okay? Miners spent hours using me to sift through sand and rock looking for gold in rivers and streams. That's right, it's the gold pan. And if our summer looks anything normal, you will be able to visit me at the Mesa Schoolhouse and you can pan for gold there. But people would just take these pans into the river They would dip it into the dirt, get a little bit of water, and then because the gold was the heaviest thing, they would kind of sift things around, and eventually the gold would be the only thing left because it was heavy. All the other dirt, the water would move the dirt and the other minerals out of the way, and it would leave the gold. And then they would pick it up, and that leads us to our last artifact. The Sayers used me to weigh gold found by miners. So once a miner finished his day of work in the stream or at the actual mine where they were using dynamite to explode the mountains to find gold and other natural resources, they would take what they found to the assayer. And I would, as the miner, I would hand my gold to the assayer, and he would have his scale, which is my favorite artifact, and he would have his counterweights. How much is that counterweight?
20 grams.
Okay, so my chunk of gold is less than 20 grams. That's 10 grams. So that one is about 12 grams. And so then they would have the price per gram for gold, and I would get paid for 12 grams of gold, and I would go home for the day and put my money in my pocket. So other facts about miners, that's really what made Denver grow very quickly, was people would come to strike it rich to get lots of gold from the mine. So they would go to Denver first, they would get all the equipment that they need, and then they would go to one of the mining towns. They worked long hours trying to find gold, either panning or drilling into the mountains. And kids would do it too. Boys as young as 10 would mine for gold. They also mined silver, lead, coal, and over the years other minerals. Sometimes they mine minerals that they didn't have a use yet, and then all of a sudden they'd find a use for that mineral, and so they would strike it rich because of that. And I think those are the main facts about our miners. That's it. Thanks for participating in the Moving Day program brought to you by History Colorado and the Tread of Pioneers Museum here in Steamboat. I hope you enjoyed it. I want you to take a minute now and think about the 6 groups of people that we just talked about. They left behind a ton of information about themselves through artifacts, primary resources, and I hope you learned a lot today. It was those 6 groups of people and many, many more, whether people stayed for a year, 30 years, 1,000 years, or a couple days. Every person that has been through Colorado has left their mark and has helped shape the history of our state. That includes you and the people in your class, maybe your ancestors of one of those groups. So it takes everybody to make history. Thank you for joining today. We hope to see you around town this summer. When the museum is back open, please come visit us. I will leave that special artifact for you to smell at the front desk of the museum. Have your parents like us on Facebook, Tread of Pioneers Museum, in order to learn about upcoming programs and in order to also know when videos are coming out about fun Pioneer games and activities. Thanks for participating.